Hey there. Hello, how do you do? My name is Harry Wetzel. Thanks for coming. It's the 80s, darling. Yes, it's January 1983. It's January 30th, Sunday, the last Sunday in January 1983. And I'm having my last date with Magdalena, my last visit. And we're sitting around sipping cranberry juice at the dining room, living room table. And we're chatting. She's talking about her schooling and the test that she just took. And I've got a stack of photographs over here on the side table. And I'm like, I've got some pictures of me and my friends back in Michigan. Would you like to see those? And she's like, yes, very much. So, and we've got some pictures from the old days back at Palmer Estate when I was living back with Rodent and Carp. And there's a couple of photographs of me in Palmer's kitchen. And one of them is a nice photograph of me. I didn't hate it. It looked like me in a good mood. And she says, oh, I love this photograph. And I'm like, would you like it? And she said, yes, very much. This is perfect, she said. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad you like it. She says, no, I have something for you. And I'm like, really? Yes. And so she reaches into her purse and she brings out and hands me this photograph. Yes. And I say, oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I look at the back and it says, to my friend Harry, with love, Magdalena. And so I go, wait a minute. So I get my photograph and I write on the back, to my friend Magdalena, with love, Harry. And she says, oh, and I says, thank you so much. I will always cherish this photograph. It's just so beautiful. And she says, I love my photograph too. And I'm like, yes, that's just, thank you so much. And she puts my picture in her purse. She sighs and she looks at me. She says, okay, I don't know how to tell you, so I'll just tell you. And I already told you what happened after that, yes. So we hugged goodbye. She went over to the door, opened the door. We said goodbye to each other. She pulled the door shut. And I never saw her again. Okay. What do I do now? Well, my heart isn't broken. No. I mean, I seem to have dodged that bullet. I mean, we only had the one date, and a few phone dates. So, how do I utilize this event to make myself a better, smarter, stronger person? How do I do that? Dang. I don't have an answer for any of that. Except, I guess, hope for the best, expect the worst, and go back to work, which is what I did. So I'm still working at the fancy booze store. And every now and then they take you off the sales floor to put you up in the meeting room / wine tasting room upstairs. Yes, to do some paperwork. There are many orders. And some by mail. And so we've got to fill out a lot of paperwork, write out the addresses, and figure out the different taxes for each order. Yes, different cities. And we're not just sending booze to Manhattan. We're sending it to all over greater New York area, and Yonkers and Poughkeepsie and New Rochelle, and they all have different tax percentages. So you have to do mathematics, for crying in a blue bucket. Yes, it's another circle of the inferno. It is. A slightly different circle of the inferno from actually being on the sales floor and dealing with the anxious public who are often grumpy and usually in a hurry and want that to be your fault. I know. So I'm in this particular circle of the inferno, and in order to keep myself sane, I start to have a little fun with the abbreviations. So instead of abbreviating it NY, I abbreviate it New Your, period. NEWYOR, period. It's still an abbreviation. I abbreviated Yonkers as Yonk. I abbreviated New Rochelle as New Roach. It's harmless, and I had a little fun with it. Well, one day, the assistant manager, Rudolph, a man in khaki, came up to me all huffy one day, and I could see that he was already drunk. Now, there was a lot of drinking going on in this emporium. Hey, you had to do it. You had to know the product. There was a lot of drinking going on, and a lot by the executive staff. I'm just saying. Anyhow, he came up to me, and he was all huffy, and he started to give me a lecture on how to abbreviate and how not to abbreviate. The abbreviation for New York is N period Y period, not NEWYOR period. If he wasn't so silly and tipsy, it might have been a little bit more intimidating. Well, anyhow, so all right. So the ladies in accounting liked my work, though. Yes. So every day at 10:30, one of the women from accounting would take a large satchel of cash from the booze store over to the bank to make a deposit, and there would always be someone to go along with her as an escort, because that's a lot of cash, right? So every now and then they would ask me to be the escort, and that was nice because you got out of the wine cellar for a while, and if it was a nice day, you got to take a little walk with one of the lovely, fantastic women from accounting. Yes. So one day, a sort of grandmother type named Winnie was taking the satchel of cash, and I was the escort. She says, "Hi, my name's Winnie." I said, "How do you do? My name is Harry." She says, "Oh, you're Harry." She says, "Oh, I have to say that your money is always very tidy." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you for noticing. I love that. I love facing my bills." She says, "Oh, well, we appreciate that. So many people don't, you know." And I'm like, "Really?" And she said, "Yes, and your numerals are always very clearly made. The women in accounting really appreciate that." And I said, "Oh, Winnie, you have just made my day." She said, "Yes, because so many people have terrible handwriting. Some of it is almost illegible." I said, "Oh." She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh." She said, "Yes." So, a week or so later, it's a typical day in the booze store. It's an average crowd. And into our booze store, Mariel Hemingway, movie star, international beauty and model, walks into the booze store. And I'm like, whoa. And you can see this stately, statuesque, gorgeous woman. And she walks on in and she goes over to the other counter. And Harold, one of my favorite coworkers, Harold Cherry, walks up to work on her. Harold Cherry looks like a scientist. He's an actor, and sometimes he's in commercials. I've seen him on television. It's fantastic. And he always plays some official-looking scientist because he looks like a scientist. He reminds me of a hero of some dystopian novel, and I picture his apartment as no furniture at all, and a single light bulb hanging down, and nothing but stacks and stacks and stacks of books throughout the entire apartment. That's how I picture him living. Anyhow, This statuesque beauty is over there and being waited on by Harold Cherry, who stands 5'5" in his heels. So she's sort of scrunching down to make her order, and I'm watching this beautiful picture of my coworker and this international beauty making her order. And up blusters a customer in front of me, and he says, and he wanted to order, 6 bottles of some mediocre white French wine. And so I'm like, I wonder if I should include this customer in this little bit of stargazing that I've got going on over here. And so I decide I'm going to do it. I lean in and I sort of whisper. I say, "Excuse me, sir, but there's a famous person in the building." And he says, "What? Really?" A little too loud. And I say, "Don't look now, but Mariel Hemingway." And he just blinks at me, and I say, "Buying wine from Harold over there, international movie star." Whoop! What was that? Anyhow, I said to him, "International beauty, Mariel Hemingway." And he looks at me like I handed him a moldy orange. And he says, "Well, I wouldn't know anything about that." And I'm like, "Oh no, wrong person to share with." And he says, "I happen to be in a television show." And I'm like, "Why are you so loud?" And he says, "Yes, I'm in the television show, Blur. And I wish I remember what the guy said the name of his television show was, because it was one of those stupid-sounding television shows with a stupid-sounding name, like "We're All Doing It Now," or "Ziggin' the Zag," or "Jumping Around," or "Jumping Around," or some such effluence. And this guy annoyed me immediately. You know what I mean? I wouldn't know about that. Well, you wouldn't know about what? Because you're too busy with what? You pompous boob. And so I just say to the guy, I go, "Oh." I said, "I don't watch television." And that really annoyed him. It just reminded me of with his crummy white wine, about his crummy white wine. Right, so I went over, I got the order, went over, flipping the chute, and I got the bottles, and I packed up the order for him, and by the time we were done with the order, Mariel Hemingway was gone. I look over, and there's Harold. So I go over to Harold, and I ask him about it, and he says, "Oh, yeah, Hemingway's granddaughter." Anyhow, I have another coworker at the shop that I get along with very well. His name is Jim, and Jim rides his bike to work every day. Yeah, he lives down on 9th Street apparently, and he rides up to 61st Street every day. And when it rains, he's got an old-fashioned New England slicker. Yes, he's got the coat and the leggings, the yellow coat, the yellow leggings, and the yellow hat. He looks like he's trying to sell you fish sticks or something. Anyhow, Jim, my coworker, this fellow, has a particular talent. Yes. And I will tell you about that talent next time. I look forward to telling you about it, and I look forward to seeing you again. P.S. Don't forget to share this out with other people. We need to start an empire together, and I need your help. Yes. All right. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again.